They don't buzz. They operate. Every morning, without warning, more than 7 million bees take off from mobile hives distributed across vast agroforestry systems. Not randomly, not chaotically, but in a meticulously synchronized pattern that resembles a dispersed aerial fleet. Each bee, a biological drone, dispatched with a singular mission: pollination. They have a window, 72 hours. Within this fragile margin of time, every flower counts, every trajectory matters, and every degree of temperature can mean the difference between a thriving harvest and a silent, empty orchard. To understand this system is to see logistics in its most delicate form. These insects don't follow commands the way machines do. They navigate using solar orientation, magnetic fields, scent trails, and a learned memory of terrain. Yet somehow, they operate as if guided by invisible software, swarming, diverging, converging again, like a living algorithm in motion. From above, their movement resembles airflow simulations used in subterranean mining shafts. Engineers call it rotor coordination, a controlled turbulence where airflow keeps humans alive underground. In the fields, bees apply that same principle, except here, the safety isn't human, it's botanical. Crop survival depends on that same consistency of motion, of direction, of temperature. But unlike machines, bees don't have steel frames or hardened electronics. They are sensitive, alive, and exposed. Wind speeds above 15 kilometers per hour disrupt their flight. A drop of 1.5 degrees Celsius below optimal can confuse navigation. Traces of pesticide molecules, undetectable to humans, can erase their memory of flower patterns. And this happens in real time, while the farmer watches the sky and the clock. Because each second a bee hesitates, a flower risks going unpollinated. Each degree of environmental drift creates a ripple in yield. This is not conventional beekeeping. This is biological logistics, where nature becomes infrastructure. The hives are no longer static. They're repositioned weekly across plantations, sometimes daily, depending on crop bloom cycles. But moving a hive isn't like transporting crates or grain. It's like transporting a nervous system. Inside each box is a thermodynamic equation in motion: heat, stress, humidity, cohesion. A miscalculated route can fracture an entire colony. That's why farmers now monitor hive interiors with sensors once used in pharmaceutical labs. That's why thermal images of these hives under stress are studied like those of semiconductor clean rooms. Because both systems demand the same thing: environmental precision. The question is not how to raise bees. The real challenge is how to integrate a cognitive, a fragile, decentralized organism into a high-efficiency agricultural model without ever giving it a direct order. How to partner with intelligence you cannot program, only align. And yet, millions of times per day across thousands of farms, this alliance works. Invisible, silent, essential. This is where agriculture meets micro-aviation, not with wings of carbon fiber, but with wings of chitin, not by fuel injection, but by instinct. And still, somehow, it flies like clockwork. A pollination cycle does not begin in the flower. It begins in the truck. Before bees can fly, they must arrive, coherent, calm, and thermally intact. But inside an uninsulated cargo bed, heat disperses fast. After just 90 minutes, the delicate thermal buffer inside the hive starts to unravel. What feels like a warm day to us feels like a structural failure to them. Queen bees grow agitated. Pheromone signals lose coherence. The internal rhythm of the colony, so vital for navigation, for foraging, for survival, disintegrates. The result isn't just biological stress, it's operational collapse. A single failed transport can destroy 48 hours of scheduled pollination across an entire farm grid. This vulnerability led to one of the most precise innovations in agricultural logistics: PCM linings. Phase change materials, originally engineered to stabilize vaccine temperatures during global medical distribution, are now being used inside mobile hives. Their function is simple in concept but extraordinary in execution. They absorb, store, and release thermal energy to maintain a constant 34.5 degrees Celsius, the metabolic heart zone for colony activity. These aren't passive insulators. They're microthermal engines designed to mimic the constancy of the natural hive, even in the chaos of transport. Field results made the stakes impossible to ignore. A South African study linked a 40% drop in almond yield directly to hive temperature fluctuations beyond plus 1.5 during repositioning. No pest, no disease, just the absence of thermal regulation during a 4-hour journey. And the solution didn't come from a lab. It came from understanding that pollination is not just biology, it's controlled logistics under biological constraints. In Bahia, a citrus farm faced the same challenge. After a season plagued by yield inconsistency, the farm integrated PCM-based hive crates and began tracking their colonies using drone-based foraging density analysis. The result? A complete stabilization of bee behavior and the prevention of a previously documented 22% productivity loss. The numbers speak for themselves. But the deeper insight is even more striking. Precision in fruit production may begin with refrigeration designed for insects. Every 15 minutes, the temperature inside a mobile hive can shift enough to interfere with collective behavior. It's not dramatic, it's not visible, but it's disruptive. And if it's not being logged, it's not being controlled. And if it's not controlled, then no matter how optimized the rest of the farm may be, the pollination cycle becomes a gamble. This is why beekeeping at this scale is no longer about tending insects. It's about ensuring that biological agents arrive in the exact metabolic condition required for task execution. It's about building logistics systems not around steel or software, but around heat-sensitive flight algorithms encoded in nature itself. In this context, the truck becomes more than a vehicle. It becomes a microclimate on wheels. And the crate becomes more than a box. It becomes a precision chamber where every degree counts. Because in modern agriculture, temperature is no longer background noise. It is infrastructure. In a high-efficiency farm, everything is calibrated: machines, moisture, sunlight, harvest intervals. But in many fields, one variable is still underestimated: memory. Not human memory, bee memory. A pollinating bee does not simply wander between flowers. It learns patterns, distances, trajectories. It constructs a mental map of its environment, which it uses to return to high-value pollen zones again and again, optimizing each foraging cycle like a pre-programmed drone. But this internal GPS is fragile. Sublethal exposure to agrochemicals, especially neonicotinoids and fungicides, doesn't kill the bee outright. It disrupts its ability to recognize scents, trace landmarks, and retain spatial orientation. From the farmer's perspective, nothing seems visibly wrong. The sprayer completes its route. The bees still fly, but their movements become erratic. Foraging zones lose consistency. Hive return rates decline. And the silent result is yield degradation over days, not hours. To respond to this invisible interference, precision farms have begun adapting a tool originally developed for robotic sprayers in orchards: bee maps. Built using GPS-synced LiDAR drones, these maps trace the real-time flight corridors of forager bees. The system doesn't predict where bees should fly. It records where they do. With this data, spraying routes are adjusted to avoid key pollination windows and active corridors, much like air traffic control reroutes, commercial planes during peak migration periods. The results are measurable. In California, a comparative study between static agrochemical zoning and dynamic bee map spraying revealed a 21% increase in pollination density and a 17% drop in bee mortality in the dynamic group. This wasn't achieved through new chemicals or stronger hives. It was achieved by aligning chemical logistics with biological memory. In Espirito Santo, a mango grower took the idea further. By equipping hives with micro-GPS collars, the farm tracked foraging radius in real time. Nighttime fungicide applications were rerouted using this data, bypassing critical foraging sectors. Over the course of a single season, yield rose by 12%, without any change in water use, soil quality, or fertilization strategy. The only change was in path synchronization. These examples reveal a deeper truth about integrated agriculture. Bees are not peripheral. They are core actors in the production system, and their behavior, seemingly random, is in fact structured, memory-based, and technically predictable, but only if the system listens. When a sprayer ignores bee memory, it isn't just wasting chemicals. It is actively creating volatility, because a pollination cycle disrupted by navigational confusion can't be recovered by force. It must be prevented through foresight. If a field manager knows the exact trajectory of a drone harvester, they adjust accordingly. The same logic now applies to bees, except here, the flight path isn't programmed, it's learned, and it must be respected. At this scale, the idea of precision agriculture expands. It is no longer about machinery alone. It includes cognition, mapping not just land and plants, but neural behavior in flight. Because in modern farms, intelligence exists in the insects as much as in the algorithms, and the future of yield depends on both. For centuries, bees have been treated as part of the landscape, an ecological background presence, necessary but untouchable. Their role in agriculture was accepted, appreciated, but never truly integrated. But today, in high-performance agroforestry systems, that view no longer holds. Bees are no longer passive actors, they are dynamic biological agents, and managing their behavior is not a matter of tradition, it's a discipline of engineering. Beekeeping, in the conventional sense, focuses on colony health, hive productivity, and honey extraction. It's about tending to living systems, not unlike gardening. But when pollination becomes a production variable, when it directly influences harvest volume, quality grade, and the economic timing of the crop, then the approach must shift. The beekeeper is no longer a caretaker. They become a systems integrator. Their concern is no longer just the well-being of the hive, but the synchronization of that hive with a network of operational parameters. Bloom windows, wind patterns, temperature gradients, pesticide exposure cycles, and route redundancy. In this context, managing bees is less like managing livestock and more like managing logistics. Each hive is a mobile node, each forager is a vector, and each pollen delivery is a payload executed under environmental constraints. Precision agriculture has already embraced data for soil health, irrigation, and yield forecasting. The same logic now applies to bee activity, except here the variables are cognitive, not mechanical. Consider the challenge. Pollinators must be deployed across open terrain with no fences, no navigation towers, and no centralized control. Their performance depends on learned routes, thermal integrity, and uninterrupted access to high-density bloom zones. But their decisions are influenced by microclimates that shift hourly, by agrochemical particles carried on the breeze, by distance, by memory. These are not inputs that can be toggled with a switch. They are biological processes that require careful calibration, like tuning an acoustic instrument to match the temperature of the room. That calibration is now happening. In New Zealand's advanced kiwi farms, mobile hives are equipped with integrated telemetry systems. These aren't sensors simply counting bees. They're monitoring internal hive temperature, exit frequency, queen pheromone signaling strength, and external environmental pressures. That data feeds into a live scheduling platform that orchestrates hive movement across fields with the same strategic logic used by aviation control towers. Every repositioning of a hive is based on flight density analysis, bloom stage, and expected wind behavior. The result is a farm that not only pollinates, but does so with engineered efficiency. This shift reveals a profound truth. When treated as unpredictable wildlife, bees introduce risk. But when treated as responsive systems, biological fleets with measurable tolerances, they become reliable agents of productivity. The key is not control, it's design. Designing the environment, the exposure windows, the logistical flow of hive movement to match their behavioral rhythms. It means anticipating stress points before they emerge, just as one would in mechanical maintenance. It means tracking temperature drift, as one would track fuel levels in a harvesting combine. In this model, the hive is no longer a box of insects. It is a biological reactor, an interface where chemistry, thermodynamics, and cognitive behavior converge. Inside it, productivity is not a given. It's an outcome, contingent on precision. This is the new face of agriculture, one where soft wings and hard data intersect, where pollination is not assumed, but planned, and where success depends not only on how well the machines work, but on how deeply we understand the organisms that fly between them. 7 million bees, spread across hundreds of hectares, aren't just nature's helpers. They are the most delicate logistics force in the food supply chain, and they require the same rigor, intelligence, and strategic coordination that we already apply to every other component of modern agriculture. Did you imagine biological logistics could be this engineered? Comment 1 if this redefined your view of pollination in modern farming.